Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is Kani, your book reviewer PNG tuber. So today on our plate, we have a book called Second Chances in Newport Stephen by T.J. Alexander, a critically acclaimed author originally from Florida but now lives in New York City with their wife. They've also written books called Chef's Kiss and Chef's Choice. Having glanced over their work, it seems like they tend to write a lot of T for T or trans for trans, basically all trans couples. Anyway, let's get into the review. Before we get into the majority of it, I just want to say this book, between being a much needed breath of fresh air from the last book I reviewed and the emotional connections I had with the main character, relatable yet painful. I do want to give some warning. There is mention of alcoholism and some transphobia, but I would say it doesn't really get too dark. It's not over the top or anything. Most of them, there's only like maybe one scene where transphobia comes up, and there's a few instances of alcoholism being mentioned, but nothing too dark. So, our main character is Eli Ward, a trans man who's coming back home from living in New York for a few years after losing his job when the show he wrote for was canceled. He's well into his transition and obviously isn't super comfortable coming back to his small hometown in Florida. It's set during more modern times. It's not exactly a friendly state for anyone that's not cishet. Our love interest is Nick Wu, ex-boyfriend and friend of Eli. They were friends since preschool and ended up dating in high school. They ended up breaking up in senior year, but it doesn't seem like they held much in the way of bitterness from this. He's married, now divorced, and co-parenting with his ex-wife, Julia. I'm sorry if you can hear my cat rummaging. They decided now was a good time to talk or see what I'm doing. They have a child named Zoe who's an absolute highlight, which says something as I often dislike books with super young kids thrown in it, but to be honest, I feel like she added quite a bit to the story. Like my other reviews, I'll go in depth for the first few chapters and then skip towards the end while keeping it vague enough to invite you to read it. Trust me, I wish I could go chapter by chapter, but I will make sure to hit certain marks that I think fellow trans men or even trans women could relate to. Maybe even non-binary people do. Truth be told, I don't know very many that identify as such, but I don't want to exclude them. So let's go get into this review. Anyway, Eli shows up a few days before Christmas. He's an absolute mess because trans or not, holidays are just a stressful time nowadays. We see his family is supportive, but supportive in the liberal sense. They mean well, but sometimes things just don't land. Like saying you'll always be our daughter. Not understanding how that can be backhanded even if you support the transition. His mother sends him off to a liquor run as they ran dry, as he's coming to basically a party. At first I was worried because we're told he's sober, but it seems he has a pretty good grasp of his former addiction. This is where he runs into Nick. They try to catch up, but of course it's the holidays and it's late, so they're ushered out before they can fully catch up. Nick invites him to the Drunken Manatee, I believe that's the name. I'm sorry if that's wrong. I don't have the book here because someone wanted to borrow it right after I was done reading it. A restaurant he manages, I wasn't entirely sure since later they kept on saying he could casually leave. I don't think an owner would just casually leave their business, but what do I know? The next day, he ends up getting dragged to the place by his parents as they want to treat him to a nice lunch. It's of course busy, but Eli spots Nick, who of course waves him over, and his parents encourages him to go. This is where we see not only is Nick an attentive and caring father, but he's a hot dad. The most dangerous type of man there is. Dangerous as in the whole other level, not like physically dangerous. I do like a line from this chapter. I am paraphrasing a little bit, but it's on page 30. We're pushing 40. Well, for me, it's a queer 40. It says more like 26, which God, I hope that's true because I'm pushing 30 and I already feel like an old gay. Moving ahead a few chapters because, well, read the book. They're at a beach for a morning run, trying to catch up while getting Eli out of the house. Nick is trying hard to be respectful of his transition, but in an actual well-meaning sense. Not in a, he has an issue with it, but is trying to be kind for his friend's sake sense. More just, he doesn't know what's proper. something I found relatable as fellow gay trans men. He reassures Nick that just because they were together pre-transition doesn't mean he's gay. I have had that conversation more than a few times, I hate to admit. Neither want their time to end, so he invites Eli to come kayaking with him and his daughter later. Zoe, being a child, immediately picks up a hitch in some of their stories Eli is telling about her dad as they were growing up. Nick takes it in stride and explains that Eli is transgender. She asks about her classmates being trans, and he points out that it's rare, but not impossible. And if that's the case, he'll help her learn their new name. She of course accepts this because kids aren't bothered by things when you explain it to them. Weird. Shocking, I know. Afterwards, they drop off Eli, and Nick drops off Zoe for her mom to pick her up. It's nice to see they're good co-parents. Not hard to see why they divorced. Nick is a workaholic, and poor Lori. She obviously has an abusive past with her mother, Kay. Lori's. I apparently called her like 3 different names in my script. I apologize. I ended up going down the right-wing conspiracy pipeline after her husband dies. Blames everything on immigrants and thinks anyone not like her is dangerous. Zoe, being a child, blurts out about meeting Eli and him being trans. Kay freaks out, of course, while Lori is surprised but doesn't mind. Because, well, he's a longtime friend and they were out in public. There's nothing shady, and clearly she trusts her ex's intuition around people. Good on Lori for taking her daughter out of the situation, as it seemed Kay wasn't going to chill. I do want to go into the point with Kay. I thought she would be more of a menace in the story. Really, she only pops up like once more as an actual issue, and even then it was sort of minor and had nothing actually to do with the coupling. I do kind of wish she was more of a villain, but I can also see why she wasn't, so I won't inherently hold this against the book or the author. It could have gone either way. I'm not bothered by the choice. So I forgot this book is a little bit of a slow burn, so I'm gonna go ahead and talk about the relationship a little bit more. You do get hints from both point of views that the feelings are still there. For Nick, he's kind of confused on why he's still attracted to him. Not that Eli is unattractive, but he looks like a man. Yet, there's that attraction. So he doesn't question his feelings as much as his tale is addressing what his orientation is. While Eli seems like he feels guilty for being attracted to him still. As to his knowledge, Nick is entirely straight, so he tries to ignore his feelings and throw out any hope there is something there for him. Oh my god, how did I forget this? Eli and his mom get in a fight. I have been in the exact same spot before with the same argument, and I absolutely get it. His family has childhood pictures everywhere. If you're not trans, this might be a little confusing. But sometimes it can be painful to have constant reminders of a childhood that may or may not feel tainted. Some of us know early on in life that there's something off. And as you grow, things aren't aligning as you feel they should be. He struggles to get his feelings out, and it just builds up until he flees because he's overwhelmed and he's upset that he hurt his mom. Of course, he flees to Nick, and they end up going to their old beach together. Here is when we get their first kiss, which sends Eli fleeing. I understand why, because initially in his mind he thinks Nick still sees him as a woman that he's attracted to, so he bolts. But luckily this author doesn't cut the chapter there and have it be this dramatic thing. Nick catch up to him immediately and things get patched over, and it seems well. The ending, because if I keep on going on this review, it's going to be pages long, and I truly do want people to read this book and not rely on my absolutely abysmal retelling. Of course, since it's a romance novel, they do end up together. Eli is super ready to step up as a step-parent, and they are moving out west for reasons you'll have to just read to see. The families are happy to come together and help them move. I just want to keep on going a little bit longer with my review, because when I say this book had me just every single page, I just had to keep on going, I absolutely mean it. My notes on how I take notes for my book reviews, every chapter I have a short summary of what happened and kind of my feelings of what was going on. And this entire time I am just gushing over this book, which does not happen often, just even in my normal reading that aren't for reviews. This entire time I was just I need to know more. Oh no, you can't leave me on this chapter. It was just, the pacing was amazing, the characters, all of them were entertaining. Even Kay, she was entertaining in the story itself. So let's get to our rankings. Character. A 10. Every character was well planned, thought out, and had a purpose. No one was just there as filler. Plus, many of them were relatable with their point of views. Atmosphere. 9. I could have used a little bit more detail here and there, but nothing really took me out of this book. I'm just a needy reader. Oh, I do want to touch back on character real quick. It was kind of refreshing to have queer characters be older. Don't get me wrong. I still can relate to like younger 20-year-olds, but it was happy to see people in their 30s be talked about. It kind of had like less of that high school young immaturity issues and more just like, oh, these are two people with their own lives coming together. Writing. 10. A light and easy read even for a slow burn sort of romance. I mean, I don't think they kissed until like nearly 200 pages in. And at no point was I like, hurry up and kiss. And to me, that takes skill. Plot. 9. I feel like we could have used a little bit more twist, but honestly, it was a refreshing take on the no communication plot. It didn't feel cringe or forced. Intrigue. 10. I did not want to put this book down. I finished reading it in like less than 5 hours, and that was with breaks every hour to actually go and do my job. A binge-worthy read. Logic. 10. Nothing took me out of this story and was like, wow, this is super unrealistic. If if anything, it was so real, I thought this was a retelling of a real-life story. Absolutely nothing needed to be changed. Enjoyment. 10. Like above, this was perfect. This is so great. I had to hand this book off to a loved one right after finishing because I just had to share this love. So our total score is a 9.71. It didn't quite beat the boyfriend subscription but for a slow burn, I'm pretty shocked. It absolutely broke my expectations. I recommend this book to anyone that enjoys a good cozy romance with older characters that are both nearly 40. Well, this is my review this week on Second Chances at Newport Stephen. Thank you for watching and see you next week. Bye.